Canada at a port of entry, it is extremely important for you to abide by all of the immigration laws for a successful entry into Canada. When entering Canada with inadmissibility, this can cause a significant problem for the individual that is attempting to enter Canada. Consequently, they can actually be denied entry at the border. In order to overcome their inadmissibility, an individual can apply for a temporary resident permit in order to gain entry into Canada. A temporary resident permit essentially allows the individual to enter Canada temporarily, even though they do have inadmissibility issues. In this video, I will explain what is needed to apply for a temporary resident permit at a port of entry and what the requirements are in order to gain successful entry into Canada. As long as you've had a criminal history in Canada or the US, or if you've been deemed inadmissible for other reasons, you are eligible for a temporary resident permit in Canada. Interestingly enough, Canada and US actually share a database with regards to any criminal history for any individuals from the country, whether that be visitors, permanent residents, or citizens of the country. Inadmissibility is usually designated for individuals who commit major offenses such as misdemeanors or felonies. On the other hand, you can also be deemed inadmissible due to other reasons. For instance, should you have a significant medical condition, you can be deemed medically inadmissible. The reason for medical inadmissibility is usually due to the person potentially needing Canadian social services such as healthcare. Another circumstance that can be seen as inadmissibility is financial difficulties. For instance, if you are unable to prove or provide enough evidence to show that you have sufficient funds to support your stay while in Canada, you can be deemed inadmissible. Lastly, another circumstance that can cause inadmissibility is due to illegal employment. For instance, should you have any work equipment with you, or if you've had any communication with a Canadian employer prior to you entering Canada, the immigration officer can deny your entry into Canada. When applying for a temporary resident permit, it is suggested that you apply through to the Canadian consulate before applying through a port of entry. This will prove to the immigration officer that you have taken the process seriously and that you would like to overcome your inadmissibility. Of course, if you are pressed for time and you cannot apply at the consulate, then you can definitely apply at the port of entry. A port of entry is any Canadian border or any Canadian airport. For criminal inadmissibility, you may only apply for a TRP, which is a temporary resident permit, to enter or to stay in Canada only if it has been less than 5 years since the end of your sentence, or you have valid reasons to stay in Canada. Another very important factor when applying for a temporary resident permit is that you must demonstrate that your entry or stay in Canada has to outweigh the health or safety risks to Canadian society. This goes for all inadmissibility issues, and you have to provide sufficient evidence in order to prove this. However, ultimately, the decision is in the hands of the immigration officer whether or not to approve your temporary resident permit. Essentially, in order to enter Canada successfully, even with your inadmissibility issues, it is vital for you to provide sufficient documentation as well as evidence, and most importantly, accurately fill out all of the application forms in order for your chances of successful entry to be a lot higher. Additionally, you can also provide a detailed narrative of why you should be permitted to enter Canada and how your certain circumstances do not pose a threat to Canadian society. Once you are at the port of entry, it is very important for you to consider and be very well prepared for any questions that the immigration officer may have for you. Remember to get all of your documents prepared and ready for the immigration officer to review, and make sure that you present yourself in a very respectable manner. Please note that all immigration officers are not the same, and many have different approaches to how they will ask you questions. There may be, on the odd chance, an immigration officer that may ask you questions in an aggressive manner. However, it is extremely important for you to keep composed and answer all of the questions in a polite manner. If you show any signs of frustration or anger, the immigration officer does have the authorization to deny your entry into Canada. Therefore, it will benefit your chances of successful entry significantly if you answer all of the questions in a polite and respectful manner. Conclusively, it is essential that you have taken all of the aforementioned requirements as well as the documentation into consideration before applying for a temporary resident permit at the port of entry. Here at Akrami & Associates, we have dealt with many immigration matters and can definitely help you out with this process. We have helped many of our clients gain successful entry into Canada with inadmissibility issues. If you would like to apply for a temporary resident permit at a port of entry, please feel free to contact us. With Akrami & Associates, there's always a way.